Breaking the silence. This whole month we've been talking about self-advocacy. Who are we? What do we want? What are we doing? How do we make a difference in our lives, in the world? And as I was meditating and working on today's talk, it came to me that there's one way to do this, and that is by knowing who I am. It's going inside. It's understanding me. So our world is today, we're taught to look outside of us for our love, for our affection, for our appreciation, for our validation. But the reality is that we'll never find it out there if we don't find it in here. There's an old Hindu myth that talks about, I was supposed to take this, wasn't I? He's looking at me like, what are you doing? Oops, let's black that out for a moment. So there's an old Hindu myth, right, that says the gods are trying to figure out where they're going to hide divinity so the humans will never find it. And so where do they hide it? Because I know that some of you know this. Where do they hide the divinity? They inside, right? That they hide it inside the human being, and they'll never discover it because they always look outside. So I started thinking about that, and that is true. I mean, in the world that we live today, how many times have you heard the woe is me story? Well, she did this to me. He did that to me. So Socrates, I know you all know who Socrates is, one of our oldest and most prestigious philosophers. And he says, I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only teach them to think. Because what was his philosophy was, let's ask questions. I'm not going to tell you the answer. I'm just going to ask you ideas or ask you questions so you contemplate and then figure it out yourself. Because we are created on different levels. There they are. So we have our conscious minds, right? We have that thinking process. What we think we are. So I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, well, Rachel just woke up and Rachel's going to be grateful and Rachel's going to go do this. And it's just all about what's this body and this thought process. But where do we go a little bit deeper? Now, I made it up instead of down because I think we start at the bottom and grow bigger. So then we have our subconscious or unconscious. That part of us that is formed through our experiences and our lives and our belief systems. And what we do with that subconscious is we create the world around us so that our conscious mind has something to do and to think and to be in. And then we have our superconscious. And in science of mind, we call that the race consciousness. I think we should change it to the universal consciousness or the God consciousness. With no apostrophe S. So God consciousness, not God's consciousness. Does that make sense? And the reason I say that is because when we make it God's, with an apostrophe S, consciousness, then we're thinking that God is something else, that there are something not me that is God. But the reality is I am. I am that. Because by being, I am that light. So last talk I talked about the analogy, and I'm still working on the analogy, and it comes to my brain like daily at this point, is that there is always the light that is God. That light is bright. That light is white or whatever color you want to make it, and it shines. And if we had a projector and we're shining that light, it is beautiful, but awfully boring. And so we come to this world and we create a film with shadows and color and different things, and we put that in front of the light so that we have something interesting to do. I was watching a K-drama. You guys have Netflix? They have the K-dramas, and some of them are dubbed, and with my dyslexic mind, I can't do the subtitles. I can only do the dubbing. So I'm watching this K-drama, and it's riveting, right? It's one of those historical ones, and there's the father is this, and the mother is this, and there's the adopted son, and then the pretend son comes in, and by the end of the story, I'm crying because the father's dead, and the adopted son is dead, and the pretend son is dead, which ended up being the lover. Oh, but man, it was so much fun. Even with the tears and the clogging of my throat because I couldn't breathe. And I'm like, this is our lives. This is what we do. want to be entertained. Richard Bach, in the book Illusions, one of my very first metaphysical books that I read, he talks about why are we going to the film? Why do we go to the movies? We go to the movies to be entertained or to learn. And that's what life is. Life is about being entertained with all of the drama and to learn, to grow, to take our consciousness, our conscious mind, and move into our subconscious mind and allow it to connect to all mind, universal mind. So if I'm in charge of my conscious thoughts, I can go in and I can start weeding. Oh, that's a negative one. I don't want that one. That one's not leading me where I want to go. I'll get rid of that one. But the reality is that the weeds continue to grow because we haven't gotten to the roots. Because where are the roots? In the subconscious mind. And so getting to that subconscious mind, it's kind of tricky because we don't know what we don't know. And that's where the meditation and the mindfulness and the taking the time to breathe and to sit and to break the silence of the busyness of the world we live in. So think about that. We live in such a busy, loud world that we become silent to ourselves. And if we're silent to ourselves, how do we know who we are? How do I know who I am if I take no time to stop and listen to me? It doesn't happen. And so we have this whole world that looks like it's happening outside of us, which is actually happening inside of us in our subconscious, creating all of the drama, which is what we want because it would be really boring if we just stared at the light. So some of you might be saying in your head, because when I first heard the concept, I was like, I don't want to cry. I don't want the pain. I don't want the fight with my best friend. I don't want that. And I would say, well, if you've got it, you must want it on some level. Now, the next comment usually is, well, you can't say that children want to be abused. They're children. And I'm going to say, absolutely. I'm not saying that children want to be abused. Rape victims don't want to be raped. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there is a superconscious which has a tendency to apply its beliefs into our subconscious, which applies its beliefs into our consciousness if we're not paying attention. Because everything flows downhill, right? And so unless I'm conscious of what I'm seeing and doing in my subconscious, which then allows me to reach into the superconscious, I'm just a victim of all that is going on outside. Whew, that was a lot. Did that make sense? It made sense in my brain, but my brain knows what I'm talking about. Okay, good. So, the Science of Mind teaching symbol is saying the same thing, right? We've got our wholeness, which is the universal energy, God, source, spirit, the light, the spark. We've got the top, which is our spirit, which is spirit or God or that superconscious. We've got the middle part, which is the creative law. The creative law, what creates is our subconscious. And then we've got the end, which is the body, the effect, or our conscious mind. Okay? So we can allow it to flow down, or we can work on flowing up. Either way, we still have the life that we're living. So, whoops, I didn't want that one yet. There we go. So I have a story, asking the question. So getting back to Socrates. Socrates said, ask questions to get the answers. Ask the questions. So you may have heard this question, why does this always happen to me? That's a question. It's not an effective question, though. When you ask, why does this happen to me, your brain goes, well, let's see. Why does this happen to you? And it's going to give you an answer. It's going to tell you why this is happening to you. But is that productive? Does that solve anything? Does that make anything happen different? No. It just creates more of the same. So what would be a good question? What am I going to learn from this situation? How is this situation bettering me? How can I help somebody else through this situation? So we've got questions that we can ask that allow us to go in a different place into our subconscious. So for an example, I had a dear friend, her name is Karen, and Karen and I, this is probably about, 10 years ago, and we're sitting in a class, and she had this huge dilemma on her mind, whether to move to New York or to stay in Vegas. And so we're chit-chatting about it, and I was like, Karen, question, why do you want to move to New York? And she goes, well, my daughter just had a grandbaby, and my daughter and my grandbaby and my son-in-law, they're moving to New York, and they're opening a business. They were going from California. And I'm like, so you moving to New York, how does that feel? And as she closed her eyes and she kind of got into the feeling, I saw her whole body light up to be with her grandchildren, to help her daughter. It felt amazing. And I said, well, why would you stay? And she said, well, I've got my whole spiritual family here. There's the church, and there's my business, and I've got all this stuff here. And I said, okay, so what would it feel like if you stayed here knowing that your daughter and grandbaby are moving to New York? She closed her eyes, and she got into the feeling, and it was heavy. And she opened her eyes, and she said, thank you for asking the questions. I'm moving to New York. Because she took the time to ask, or I guess I gave her the right questions. She asked to answer the questions, to do the contemplation, to stop the silence and begin listening to herself rather than all of these outside influences. Make sense? So now I can read my quote. Oz never gave nothing to the Tin Man that he didn't, David said I have to put the second didn't in there, didn't already have. You guys know the song, right? Yeah. See, David, you were right. Everybody nodded their heads. So what does this mean? We were driving along, and this song came on the radio, and I'm like, oh my God, that's it. Because Oz, being the God figure, and the Tin Man going, I want to be courageous, I want to be brave, I want to have heart, I want to feel compassion and love and be supportive, but I'm not that. And as we go through the story of the Wizard of Oz, we see that he is all of that and more. He didn't need a heart. He just needed to acknowledge the heart. So I remember a time when I, years ago, probably about 15, maybe, how old are you now, 31? So she was 13 at the time. So anyway, a long time ago. I'm taking this seminar, and they're like, okay, Rachel, this weekend you have to do something that scares you. And I was like, nothing really scares me, because, I was a little denial at that time. And one of the guys said, have you ever skydived? And I went, no. Well, maybe you should do that. I'm like, I have no desire to do that. And he said, well, why not? And I said, because it's scary. I don't want to do that. So lo and behold, there I'm on the road to Jean, Nevada to skydive on a Saturday in the middle of summer. And I was terrified. Absolutely terrified. Tears are running down my face. And we get there, and we spend 20 minutes to a half hour them telling you how you can die. And then you have to sign a waiver saying, yep, I know I can die. And then you have to do this walk of death to the plane. And I'm like, oh my God, I just have to have courage. Oh my gosh, I'm so scared. I want to get through this. I get on the plane, and there's one seat, and that's just for the pilot. And we're all sitting in this small little thing. We go up 11,000 square feet, and then this guy hooks himself to me, right? And we dive out and roll over, and I'm falling in the sky. And the parachute comes up, and of course you feel the movement. And then there's peace. And it's so quiet. And the air is cool. And I remember looking down, and it was amazing. Absolutely amazing. And then, of course, you land. You have to pick up your feet and boom, boom, boom along the ground. And I thought to myself, this is a milestone. This is one of those points in my life that at any point in time I go, this is way too big for me to handle. I can think I jumped out of a plane. And it was amazing. And so that was inside of me. Nobody gave me the courage to do that. Nobody made me sign that piece of paper or walk to the plane or get on the plane. I did that all in me because Oz never gave nothing to the Tin Man that he didn't already have. And we all have that because we all have that divine spark in us. We are that divine spark. So Ernest Holmes says, the one who attempts to heal oneself or another through the recognition of the creative power of mind and the ever ability of good, notice I have good is capitalized and bolded because good represents that universal energy. Some people call it God. We got light and universal energy. Is a mental or spiritual practitioner. Practitioner is just simply somebody who practices their whatever. So you have a doctor who's a practitioner, a medical doctor, a chiropractor doctor. You've got a nurse practitioner or someone who's practicing nursing. Spiritual mental practitioner are those who practice the spiritual and mental skills. Such a one refuses to allow negative thought to control one's consciousness. Knowing what we're thinking, understanding, breaking the silence is the power of being a spiritual mental practitioner. This person endeavors to greet the divine in everyone they meet. Have you ever done that practice where you walk through your day and when you make eye contact with somebody, you go, I see the God in you. 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 Knowing that every person I make eye contact is a perfect expression of God. Everyone. And in that knowingness, I can love you no matter what you're showing up as, whether I agree with it or not. And in this world that we live in, there's a lot of people that I don't necessarily agree with. But I can love them and I can honor them as a perfect expression of God. Because we know that God is coming to express here as me, as Stephanie, as Tina, because we're here to have the experience. We are the light, that bright light, but we put the film in front of it, which is our individuality, to have the experience. That's kind of cool. So what do we do with all this information? We've talked about the philosophy. We've talked about how I individualize it. We've talked about, I forgot my story. Hang on. I got a story. So as a hospice chaplain, I sit with people all the time who are right at the end of their lives. And sometimes they're very content. Like, yep, I'm good. I'm ready to go to whatever is next. And then I get those people that are like, oh, man, I don't know. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I don't want to. And those are the people that I love as patients because those are the people that I can sit with and I can listen to and I can witness. And a lot of time, they don't even need me to say anything. A lot of times, they just need someone to hear them, to feel them. So there was this one time, and the gentleman has passed several years ago, and I remember sitting with him and asking him how he was feeling and what was going on, and he started crying, and he said, I used to beat my kids. And I went, wow, okay. Now, as a chaplain, I don't get stunned by anything that comes out of someone's mouth. I just know them as the whole and the complete that they are. And he said, and my dad used to beat me. And again, I'm witnessing. That must have been really hard. He said, it was hard. And he's crying. And so he continues to tell me the story of his dad and then his kids and then his latest girlfriend. And the reason he was laying in that particular bed was because his girlfriend had attacked him and had beat him up. And now he was on hospice care. And after the 30, 40, 50 minutes that we sat together, his tears had stopped. And there was a peace that came over him. And he looked at me and he said, thank you. Now, in all honesty, all I did was sit there and witness his story. I didn't do anything. I've asked some questions, but that was it. And he was able to come to a place of peace because someone was willing to just hear him. It's powerful, and it's just being in the silence to allow that space of love. Now I'm ready for my next step. Reflect, remember, recognize. 3 things to remember. So we're in life, we're doing along, we're driving on the freeway, or we're sitting with a friend, or we're at work, and something happens, and there's an emotional reaction. So what I know is that if there's an emotional reaction, there's something in there for you to look at. Little story. I have a good friend of mine. He had a little daughter at the time, and he's telling me the story. And the daughter comes in, and she's crying, and she's like, "They're picking on me downstairs." And he goes, "What are they saying?" And they're saying, "I'm ugly." And he says, "Well, is that true?" And she goes, "No." He goes, "Well, then why is it upsetting you?" She goes, "Because they're saying it." So he said, "Well, honey, if you were wearing pretty little blue shoes, and you walked outside, and they were teasing you about the ugly red clown shoes you were wearing, would that upset you?" And she goes, "No, because that wouldn't be true." And he says, "Then why is it upsetting you that they're calling you ugly?" And she sat about and she thought about it. And she said, "Oh, okay." Because she realized that the reason it was upsetting her is because maybe there was part of her that thought she was ugly. And once she rectified that, she didn't care anymore. So be aware that if there's an emotional reaction happening inside of you, that there is something that you have an opportunity, you don't have to, no, we don't have to do anything, but you have an opportunity to look at it and go, what's that about? So reflecting, asking the questions, what is that about? What can I learn from here? Why is that so upsetting to me? Then moving to the next step and remembering who you are. I am divinity. I am an expression of God that is having an experience that this incident is pissing off. Okay, that almost makes it kind of like a game. So where do I figure out, or how do I figure out why this is upsetting me in this divinity of this experience? Making sense? Okay. And then to recognize that the individual who's standing in front of you, that's upsetting you, is doing you a favor, is whole and complete in their expression, and is offering you the opportunity to learn something new about yourself, to break the silence. So reflection, ask the right questions, or good questions. I guess there's no right or wrong questions, but effective or ineffective questions. Remember who you are, and then recognize the gift that you are being given by the opportunity to grow. So I want to end with what we believe. So everybody knows that we have 11 statements on CSL, that is the what we believe in our practices, right, our spiritual practices. So number 2, what we believe is that the individualization of the Spirit is us, and that all people are individualizations of the one Spirit. Let me read it one more time. We believe in the individualization of the Spirit in us, that all people are individualizations of the one Spirit. And I would even go beyond the people and say everything. Everything is that individualized Spirit. We have an affirmation, okay? Everything I seek is already within me. I trust my heart, my wisdom, and my worth. Okay, everyone go ahead and stand up. We're going to read it once through together, and then we're going to say it with meaning. Bill, I need you to move just a little bit that way. Thank you. I didn't mean down, but that's okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Everything I seek is already within me. I trust my heart, my wisdom, and my worth. One more time with feeling. Everything I seek is already within me. I trust my heart, my wisdom, and my worth. And so it is. So it is. Okay, let's pray. So knowing that God is all there is, all-knowing, all-powerful, all-present, knowing that it is the source of all things in life. It is who and what I am. It is the breath, life, and bone of me. And in this knowingness, I know that I am aware, that I break the silence of not listening to me, that I take the time to love, honor, respect me and those around me with dignity of life and dignity of truth and dignity of awareness. And with this, I am so very grateful, so grateful for the truth that I am, that all is, in this beautiful game that we play called life. And I release my word into the law, knowing it is done, 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 and together we affirm by saying, and so it is, and so it is.